why you and I both love college football is because of the narratives that come out each and every week. Meaning, when you go into game week, there's always a narrative, or when you go into a season, there's always a narrative about what certain team is coming into the season with, or what certain game and the narrative around that game. You know, like I think of next year when LSU goes into Ole Miss. Well, what's clearly the narrative there? Clearly the narrative is that Lane Kiffin is going back to Oxford. Like LSU going into Tennessee next year. When the last time that Lane Kiffin was in Knoxville, golf balls and bottles of mustard were thrown at him from the stands. Like, we love college football. We're addicted to college football because of the narratives that take place. But sometimes there are narratives that get formed around college football that are flat out dumb. Now, I'm not saying that the people that focus in on those narratives are dumb. Like, I think of the argument that we got into today on social media with the guys that cover Florida. I think it's High Top. They do a great job. They got a massive following. And some of the Ole Miss media and Ole Miss fans, and mainly the media, both coming together and saying that Lane Kiffin is not a playoff coach, that he did not lead Ole Miss into the playoffs. And they're trying to convince me that they're trolling. Maybe they are, or maybe the take is just dumb. And God knows that I've had some really bad takes. If you come out here enough and you talk about sports enough, you're on camera enough, you're going to say some things that, quite honestly, are a little bit silly. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. But yet again, a narrative is formed around the sport, and this time around you and your head coach. You know, there's a narrative that formed around Lane Kiffin. Oh, he's never going to be a playoff coach. My guy, he literally led Ole Miss to be an 11-1 in the SEC. John Summerall and Tulane are in the playoffs when they don't deserve to be there. Now, a lot of you probably know people that graduated from Tulane. Hell, you might have a loved one that went to Tulane, and I'm here to tell you, Tulane has no business being a part of the college football playoff. Zero, none, nada. You know, we look at other teams, like I think of Alabama, who I know a lot of you hate. I look at Notre Dame, which I know a lot of you hate, and say to ourselves, yeah, they don't deserve to be in. Well, what's your reason? Because I don't like them. Well, that's not a good reason. Just because you don't like a team doesn't mean they haven't deserved to be in there. You know, saying things like Lane Kiffin didn't lead Ole Miss to be an 11-1 is about as dumb as I've ever seen. Oh, we're just trolling. No. You're mad because Ole Miss couldn't hold on to Lane Kiffin. You're mad because he chose LSU over Florida, and that's just the truth. It's okay to have a dumb take. Saying, well, Brian Kelly and LSU didn't settle. Yes, they literally settled. That's the point. I think of this arc that we're on, and I am preparing you now. Because some of you are like, I'm just ready to move on from all of this. Well, with all due respect, it's here, and it's going to only get worse. When you start playing games and you get into next season, guys, it's only going to get worse. When SEC Media Days rolls around, it's only going to get worse on the narrative that you are the villain. Lane Kiffin is the villain. He didn't lead a team to the playoff. Where is Ole Miss going to be playing in 2 weeks? In Oxford against Tulane. Because of why? Because of the staff that he orchestrated, the players that he brought in, and, well, because he's a good head coach. And this has definitely done two things. Number one, it 1,000% has made the rivalry between LSU and Ole Miss that much better. But you know what else it makes me think about in a non-specific way, because it's not the same. But I think of the last 2 decades of what you and I went through. And what did you and I go through? What you and I went through was the guy that used to be our head coach. Well, he went to a rival and dominated for 2 decades. Does the same thing play out here? Blake, Lane Kiffin's going to leave you. Lane Kiffin's going to leave you. It's his nature. Maybe he does. None of us know the future. But I find it funny that we just will put on blinders as a sport. Like media will put on blinders as a sport to justify things for their own team. You know, a lot of you come in here because, quite frankly, we're just going to tell you the truth, whether you like it or not. And trust me, some of the takes that we've had over the years, especially about what happens at quarterback, trust me, I've been there. I have been there. But you can't put on blinders to what the truth is. So what is the truth? The truth of the matter is that Lane Kiffin led an Ole Miss team to be an 11-1. So you can be a Florida fan, you can be Florida media. You can be an Ole Miss fan and Ole Miss media. And you're justifying, oh, Pete Golding, did you see what he said in the press conference? Brother, he's never coached a game as a head coach. Ever. He was gifted being in the playoff by Lane Kiffin. Gifted. And the only loss that you had, by the way, was because his defense gave up 40-plus points. Florida hasn't been able to figure out who they are for the last decade. What is the truth? You know, it's not always just a narrative around LSU that I find to be appalling. You know, I was listening to some Notre Dame people today because they're not in the playoff. I think they should have been. I don't think that they should have been out, and James Madison and Tulane should have been in. I think when you talk about equality and equal spot, Tulane did not earn that spot. Because LSU lost by 5 to Ole Miss when they got blown out by 35. Who's the better team? Who's shown to be the better team? But we constantly are looking at college football through our own lenses and not looking at facts. But I look at Notre Dame, guys, they think that they have a better resume than some of these teams in the SEC. Like, they think that they have a better resume than Alabama. You can hate Alabama. Newsflash, they don't have a better resume than Alabama, and they try to justify it with all of their will and their might, and touchdown Jesus couldn't save them. You know, I look at the SEC too, in the conference that you're playing in. Guys, of the top 15 teams in the SEC, or no, let me back up. Guys, of the top 15 teams in metrics of strength of schedule, 11 of those top 15 teams are from the SEC that had the toughest strength of schedules. As you an LSU fan, you had the 7th toughest strength of schedule. And I look at your losses. Who are your losses to this season? Well, you lost to Oklahoma. They're in the playoff. You lost to Alabama. They're in the playoff. You lost to A&M. They're in the playoff. You lost to Ole Miss, and they're in the playoff. And you lost to Vanderbilt, who's on the outside looking into the playoff. So all 5 of your losses were against high-quality teams that in the future you got to win at least 3 of those high-quality games to get into the playoff. You know, I look at Tennessee. Tennessee had 4 losses. Who are those losses to? Well, to Alabama. They lost to Oklahoma. They lost to Georgia. And I look at Tennessee and say to myself, well, their 4th loss is also to a team in Vanderbilt who's on the outside looking in. Perception is not always reality. And the biggest lie of college football, the biggest lie, is that your record says who you are. Your record never indicates who you are, ever. It shows a good idea of who you can be. By the way, Tennessee isn't in that top 15. As ironic as that sounds. The truth of the nature is that when you come to a place like LSU, you're going against the best every single week. You're going against the best. So when a coach leads you to 11-1 into a playoff, and you have some of the top strength of schedules in the country. You know, I've had this argument with Carter. We should go to 9 conference games in the SEC. not win 11 of the 16 teams in your conference have the best strengths of schedule. It's only going to get tougher now. But we put on blinders because we don't like a situation. We make merch for a coach that's not even our coach yet. Lane has an uphill battle, and we're going to talk a lot about his staff, a lot about the portal, and a lot of things of how he's rebuilding, which might be an elite staff. But the bottom line remains is it is such a dumb argument. They did this to Brian Kelly too, by the way. Well, Brian Kelly didn't work out. That's fine. Because the bottom line truth is that Lane Kiffin just had an 11-win season at Ole Miss in the SEC. And we're trying to think that it's not going to be replicable here. That's a dumb argument. But narratives always exist because we have blinders on. By the way, I saw a clip from our good buddies Jake Crane and Crane and Company. Like Notre Dame people think that Navy is comparable and a comparable win to like Missouri. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? That is the dumbest argument I've ever heard. But guys, you're in a conference, by the way. You're in a conference where no one likes you. And now you're the number one villain inside that conference. So you better prepare for it. Nevertheless, we're live. Everyone do us a favor by hitting the like and share. Share to all those groups. If you're on Facebook and to all those social media pages. You're watching us, listening to us on YouTube. Like, subscribe, notification bell. Wherever you listen to podcasts, rate, review, and subscribe. Every AYS show is brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. Download the FD Sportsbook app today on Apple or Android phones. When you download the app, we got a lot of playoff games in college football that we are able to bet on this week. You have 4 players that are going to New York this week, by the way, for the Heisman. Fernando Mendoza, Jeremiah Love, Diego Pavia is making a trip to New York as well. Oh, and Julian saying the Ohio State quarterback is going to be finding himself in New York. You can bet that with our good friends over at FanDuel. For any thoughts, questions, concerns, go over to FanDuel.com/RG for more details if you have those questions. All right. I see that we have a lot of comments and we got a lot of things going on in here. AKA became a member on the YouTube channel. Yes, there's a couple of ways to get involved here. You can become a member on the YouTube channel or send in a super chat. By the way, where is everybody listening to from tonight? 225, the 337, the 504, the 337, the 337, the 504, the 985, the 318, great. Where are you listening to from tonight? Specman gifted. So now we are well over the 1,000 here because of Specman. Specman gifted 50 memberships on the YouTube channel. Thank you so much, Specman. Completely appreciate you doing that. We will have content out tomorrow. We will have content for the members-only channel tomorrow. Specman, thank you so much. The growing nature of our YouTube channel and members-only content is only growing for people like Specman. Specman, send me your address. I'm sending you something. But thank you so much. Become a member today. But 50, absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much, man. Absolutely awesome. I can't thank you enough. Send me your address. All right. Get to a couple of super chats before we get rolling here. Shaquan, that 50 members, man. So 50 of you are about to get a free membership because of Specman. Y'all need to be in the chat. Tell Specman, thank you so much. That is awesome. That is absolutely legit. Specman, you're the best, dude. You're absolutely the freaking best. Shaquan with a $10 super chat says, could you see Sam Levitt here? What is your schedule? What is your scheduled like during the offseason? Between AYS, Rufino, and Joe, Josh Pate, and other LSU guys, I usually have something to watch every day. Where Monday through Thursday and during the offseason, quote-unquote, of football, sometimes we're live on Friday nights, Saturday nights, and sometimes Sunday during the baseball season for postgame. So during the spring, guys, we're live probably 6 days a week. Aaron with a $5 super chat says, Tulane and James Madison shouldn't be in the playoffs. Agreed. But Notre Dame whining while is simultaneously pathetic and hilarious. Keep up the great work, Blake. I agree with you on all of that. And listen, here's the big thing. Here's the biggest thing for me. We'll talk about some of the players that entered the portal today for LSU. Guys, I don't think people realize how big of a deal it is that LSU made a bowl game. Blake, we're going back to the Texas Bowl. We're facing off against Houston. Why do we really care? Well, quite honestly, the reason I care is that you have 14 practices that you get to have with Lane Kiffin, who's going to be at every single one of those practices, who gets an idea of his team, where they need to go in the portal, and everything that is encompassing with a new staff coming in. Guys, the portal doesn't open technically until January. You're going to be playing a game on December the 27th against Houston in the Texas Bowl that I'm assuming that Lane Kiffin will be there for. How else better to know exactly where your roster is than having 14 practices to be able to monitor where your team is? It's a big deal. It is a massive deal to get all of these reps. It really, really is. So I know a lot of you don't care about it. I think it's a massive deal that you're in a bowl game, and why it makes like what Notre Dame is doing laughable. Imagine Trey'Dez Green going through practice and Lane Kiffin during that practice going up to Trey'Dez Green and saying, hey, man, I see you're doing this, this, and this. Why don't you try it this way? I mean, it is a massive deal. It's 14 practices before your new head coach is able to get in there during the spring. And I got to be blunt with you. I don't care that Frank Wilson's the interim coach. If Lane Kiffin tells these new players something, you roll with it. How involved is he? I don't know. I hope that he is involved. But one thing I do know is the man's out there working his ass off. He's at the facility at 4:10 a.m. I think he's hungry. So I think it's a massive, massive deal here. All right, JB Whitley with a $20 super chat says, love the show, Blake. Love you for sending in the super chat, my man. He says, thank you for being normal and not preaching at people. Watching from the 865 Knoxville, Tennessee is in the house. Their sports media makes me want to drive into a river. Keep up the great work. Well, don't drive into the Tennessee River. And you know, your new head coach just he named his son Knox. But look, we try to be as normal as we can and talk about the truth here. That's what we try to do. Thank you for sending the super chat. It means so much. All right, last one before we get rolling here. Brian Hahn with a $5 super chat says, do you think that the NCAA will change the playoff rules next year with the automatic qualifiers? Will it go to 16? So the NCAA has nothing to do with the playoff. The college football playoff is its own entity. The NCAA has absolutely nothing to do with it. Do I think the college football playoff will go to 16? Probably. And guys, I'm just going to tell you, the two things that kill the playoff: expansion, because there's not 16 teams that can win this thing. That's number one. And automatic qualifiers. I don't want participation trophy teams getting in. Tulane does not deserve to get into the playoff. They don't. They didn't earn it. And the one ranked opponent that they played, they got blown out in. You understand what I'm saying here? Blown out. They got their whole back blown out. Pause. But they did. So I don't think you should expand to 16. I think 12 is a good number. But we're all about this equality shit. Guys, you go onto the field to try to find out who is not equal. That is sport. Newsflash, Peter Pan. Newsflash. It is what it is. All right, let me get to a quick break. When we come back, Lane Kiffin assembling one of the best SEC staffs in the country. We'll talk about things, what's going on with Elijah Robinson and others. Is Frank Wilson going to be retained? We talk about that next. Stay with us.
He will sell your house and find you a new. Well, Tyler's the man, he's here for you. If you want to buy or sell, well, it's not too late. Dial 955-0008. Just call 955-0008. Y'all call Tyler, he'll shoot you straight.
Hey guys, I want to tell you about our good friends over at Red Stick Financial. They're your local residential mortgage broker located right here in the heart of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. At Red Stick Financial, they find the bank that works for your particular set of needs to purchase the home of your dreams or refinance the current one. They truly are your partners in this process, and they pride themselves in helping individuals and families with one simple goal in mind, and that is to make home financing approachable, attainable, and stress-free. They are licensed in all Louisiana, Texas, and Mississippi. So from Amarillo to Meridian and everything in between, they have you covered. Red Stick Financial brings you creative, customized solutions, and they don't believe in the one-size-fits-all when it comes to loans. They even have special options for mobile and manufactured homes located in a flood zone and stated income financing for those of us who are self-employed borrowers. If you or someone you know is looking to buy a home, refinance an existing mortgage, or simply want to know what options are out there for your future, give Red Stick Financial a call today at 225-407-9250. That's 225-407-9250. Or check them out online at redstickfinancial.com. That's redstickfinancial.com. Before you purchase the home of your dreams or you go and do that refinance, you need to go local. Go Red Stick.
We're back.
All right. Tiger Girl Keto with a massive super chat here. $100 super chat says, great work, Blake. I know you mentioned merch in the past. I work for a commercial print company with a background in graphic design and web design. Was playing around with some of the designs the past couple of days and curious if you'd like to see the specs. Love the work you do. Well, first off, you got skin in the game now, Keita. You got skin in the game. You damn Skippy. Some people sent me some DMs about what they would do. I kind of like, yeah, whatever. Tiger Girl Keita, you got skin in the game now. You just sent in a massive super chat. So, Keita, send us a DM. Tell me that it's you, and then you and I are going to have a conversation. Yes. A lot of you have been asking about the merch game. A lot of you people want these hats right here. I don't have the time, nor do I have the patience to do merch. I will go in there with this with somebody. So Tiger Girl Keita has moved herself up to number 1 on that list because she sent in a massive super chat. Keita, hit me up. I am 1,000% willing to talk to you. I want to get into it. Just don't want to have any involvement in it. I don't have the time. I don't have the time, but would love to do it. Trying to make partners with people that will listen to the show. And Keita, you have gone to the top of the list. Oh, by the way, before we get rolling, Blake's just stalling here. No, I'm not. We got a new Christmas pencil. So you're going to be seeing this Christmas pencil in my hand a lot here. Don't judge the Christmas pencil. We got a Christmas tree on top of the Christmas pencil, okay? We're utilizing the Christmas pencil. So get used to it. All right. Let's get moving here. So Lane Kiffin has pretty much gone through his entire staff and added a lot of pieces that he's needed to orchestrate one of the better staffs, which I think is coming together as one of the better staffs, not only in the SEC, but I think the country. But we're starting to get a lot of answers here in reference to where Lane Kiffin's going to go. But you have Lane Kiffin as your head coach, but it's always intriguing to see where your head coach or new head coach is going to go when it comes to staff. Now, let's run through a couple of things because the last time that you and I talked, the Blake Baker news had become official, but we were wondering about Elijah Robinson. And in that conversation, I know that some people have made it public and that it looked like Elijah Robinson, the defensive line coach, was going to be your next defensive line coach, but it looks like some other teams have started to get involved here. So let's work through and talk about where we are under Lane Kiffin with your staff. Let's move to the offensive side of the football first. So you know where you're going with a lot of big key a lot of key areas here with Charlie Weiss Jr. being your offensive coordinator. Ole Miss fans and media continuously are saying that Charlie Weiss Jr. is going to stay in Ole Miss. Well, you're going to have to owe us a $6 million buyout. So he's going to come here for 2 days, and then you're going to pay LSU $6 million, which is technically what they just paid you to get Lane Kiffin. But I still think Charlie Weiss Jr. is going to be your offensive coordinator, along with quarterbacks coach Dane Stevens. You brought in George McDonald along with Sawyer Jordan, who are going to be at receiver. And it just got announced yesterday by Brett McMurphy of On3 that Eric Wolford, the Kentucky and Bama offensive line coach, is going to take over as your next ever offensive line coach, replacing Brad Davis. So let's go walk through a couple of things here. Something that's very interesting for me. There are a lot of analysts now with this new role that I don't think is technically on-field staff, but more in an analyst role. And I think that Lane Kiffin is using a little bit of a loophole here to get past some of these things. Like I think of what Brian Kelly did last year. Like Lance Guidry was technically a defensive analyst. No, he wasn't. He coached the star position. Like we were at 17 practices during the fall. I was at, I think, 10 or 12 practices during the spring. So in all of those practices, yes, was Lance Guidry technically an analyst on paper? Sure. Because every time we saw him at practice, he was with the star position, the role that Harold Perkins was at. And I think Lane Kiffin is doing this a little bit with what you're doing at receiver. So you have a quarterback's coach, quote unquote, and Dane Stevens. I still think Charlie Weiss Jr. is going to be with and have a lot of involvement with the quarterbacks. And George McDonald, who's going to have Sawyer Jordan, with him. And so you have two people that you're announcing. They're going to be coaches, one of them being analysts, Dane Stevens and Sawyer Jordan, for the overall position coaches. Now, Jordan did coach and was very effective in coaching the inside receivers, and you got a guy for the outside receivers, and really focusing in on what you want to do in the slot and what you want to do on the boundary, which I do think is very smart. So Charlie Weiss Jr. and Dane Stevens at quarterback, along with Lane Kiffin. And that's the biggest thing here, is that you have three different coaches that are going to be with the quarterbacks. They're going to be with the offense. And you and I both know this. Lane Kiffin's going to be on the offensive side of the football in every single little thing that he does. That is his baby. That's what he works through. And that's what he's going to perfect, because he's perfected it everywhere that he's gone. And the wide receiver position, you got George McDonald, who, guys, quite frankly, has done an exceptional job at Ole Miss. Look at what they were this year. Look at what Trey Harris was a season ago, and a lot of the young guys that they had a year ago and what they blossomed into this season and what they did against teams like Georgia. You know, one thing that I look at this and say is that I don't think Ole Miss had the overall talent at receiver that you could get here, but my God, they did really good with Trey Harris and Wallace and all of the big body wide receivers, and the things that they did along at receiver is why that led them to being the third-ranked team in the country in passing. The skill position guys right now at quarterback and at wide receiver, I think you've got a really good core of nucleus. And you know what else all four of those guys know? They know what Lane Kiffin wants to expect. You know, when Brian Kelly came in here and you were running Mike Denbrock's system, when you came in here and you were running a whole different bevy of things, you know, you brought in a lot of Louisiana Tide guys. Joe Sloan had been here for over a decade in Louisiana. Brad Davis is from the state of Louisiana. Frank Wilson, who we'll talk about in just a moment, is from the state of Louisiana and has been a part of Louisiana more than anybody. And you brought in Cortez Hankton, and all of them had to learn the role of what Mike Denbrock's offense was. When you look at Charlie Weiss Jr., when you look at Dane Stevens, when you look at George McDonald, when you look at Sawyer Jordan, they all know. They all know and what to expect on every single little thing that they need to do for this offense. Cohesiveness along the offensive side of the football is already there with the staff. And they're a top 5 unit historically when these guys have been with Lane Kiffin. So I look at all of this and say, all right, from a staff on the offensive side of the football, with what we just know right now, you have a top 5 unit historically, not just in the SEC, but a top 5 offense that has been in the SEC the last 6 years on and off. They have done a really good job at teaching what Lane wants for his offense. You can make the argument from an offensive side of things, guys, that's one of the best core nucleus of coaches that you can get. Now, LSU made an official move on Sunday. Brett McMurphy of On3 reporting that Eric Wolford is going to be taking over the offensive line. And I've seen a lot of mixed reviews from people online. And this is what I'm going to say until Lane Kiffin gives me a reason to criticize staff moves that he's making. Guys, Eric Wolford was the head coach for more than 4 seasons at Youngstown State. He coached with Nick Saban for 2 seasons. And I asked Alabama media people today, tell me what you think of Eric Wolford. And this is what they told me about the hire. Was really put in a tough situation because the guy previously to him made a lot of bad evaluations, and he made a really, really bad situation, and he turned it out in 2022 to make it a really good situation, a really good unit. Guys, Eric Wolford, from what I can tell, is one of the best tacticians and developers in the sport. Oh, Blake, he came from Kentucky. Kentucky sucked. Blake, the last year of Alabama, they weren't great. Really? They won the SEC. They won the SEC. He nabbed a guy out of the portal who would wind up being the Remington Award winner of the best center in all of college football. I'm never going to question people that know more about football than I do when Nick Saban and Lane Kiffin hire an offensive line guy. I think he knows and they know what they're doing. You look at what Kentucky did. Well, Blake, in 2023, Alabama really struggled. Guys, nobody took more unprecedented sacks in 2023, and there's a statistic out there of Jalen Milroe in 2023 taking more sacks than he shouldn't because he took too many bad sacks. But all I know is that with a really bad offensive line that got recruited in the developing that they did, guys, in 2022, they averaged 200 yards rushing per game. They averaged 175 rushing yards per game. And anything is better than what you just had. With all due respect to all of the players that are current and former that are tagging us on social media about keeping Brad Davis, Brad's got to go. And I think that you're going to be a better offensive line unit who, by the way, if you watch any video of practices with Lane Kiffin, spends a lot of time with his offensive line. I will tell you, there is no bigger lie, none, no bigger lie that exists. Doesn't exist, no bigger lie from a Lane Kiffin offense and a Lane Kiffin team that they don't run the football and that they're not physical along their offensive line. Because the last 6 years, there's one team that leads all of the SEC in rushing, and it's Ole Miss. You can't be a physical offensive line for a 6-year data point in the SEC and suck and not know that Eric Wolford's not a really good offensive line coach. You're going to have to justify to me right now, not saying Eric Wolford will work out. You're going to have to justify to me that Nick Saban and Lane Kiffin don't know what they're doing. You're going to have to justify it to me. And by the way, you can't get much worse. He's not worse than what you currently have. He isn't. I talked to some Bama media as I spoke about. They liked him a lot. It was just unfortunate that Nick, retired. But Kalen DeBoer came in there and replaced a lot of people that Saban had. Think about this. The director of scouting now is on your staff. The guy that scouted all of the guys for recruiting and in the portal is on your staff now. Kalen DeBoer didn't keep him. It's not a smart move by him. He also knows Eric Wolford. And anybody that was in that Bama run with Nick Saban, who's a play away from going to another national title, I think they know what they're doing. 200 rushing yards per game is 200 rushing yards per game. You didn't have 200 rushing yards in the month of November. You didn't. So listen, I know a lot of people are worried about the offensive line. A lot of you are like, why didn't you want to go get Sam Pittman? Because Sam Pittman is in the Ozarks drinking cold beer. He don't want to be a part of this no more. And quite honestly, Sam Pittman said that Brad Davis was his number one pupil. And how did that work out for you? How did that work out? You're going to have to be patient with Eric Wolford, and you're going to have to be patient with this offensive line because they got a massive rebuild on their hands. And I think that we all know that. All right. Another thing on Eric Wolford, he's been in the SEC since 2017. He's got a lot of head coaching experience. He was at South Carolina from 2017 to 2020, Bama in 22 and 23. And 21, he was at Kentucky. And in 2024 and 2025, he was at Kentucky as well. I mean, listen, man, Kentucky's just not a good, well-recruited team. And he made the best out of it. If Saban wanted him and Kiffin wanted him, I'm going to lean on that because they know more than I do on that. One last offensive staff that we need to talk about is Joe Cox, co-offensive coordinator and tight ends coach. Guys, I think Joe Cox, for what it's worth, even if Charlie Weiss were to stay at Ole Miss, what Ole Miss has done at the tight end position with Joe Cox has been absolutely phenomenal. Look at what they did this year. I don't think that there can be and will be a better benefactor for a player on this offense with Lane Kiffin and Joe Cox, your new co-offensive coordinator and tight ends coach, more than Trey'Dez Green. Trey'Dez has got some things that he needs to work on. You know that, and I know that. But the way that they utilize tight ends in their offense is a massive deal. I'm begging, I am pleading with Trey'Dez Green. If you want what's best for you, screw everything else. Screw the school, screw your agents, screw everything. The best thing for Trey'Dez Green is to stay with Joe Cox, who has been a developer, a very good developer of tight ends, and an offensive play calling system that will get you involved at a high level. I will rewind 2.5 months ago when LSU went to Oxford, and it's 4th down and 1. And in the last play of the game, they run an RPO with the RPO having a tight end in the flat, and they connect on it twice. They're going to get you involved. Trey'Dez Green, don't leave. The old staff is out. And I don't think that Trey'Dez Green was very excited about how the interim staff utilized him because, quite frankly, they didn't. He's got to catch the football in some of those moments, and you're going to get targets in this offense, but you have the ability to take over it. If something were to happen to Charlie Weiss and he stayed at Ole Miss, I don't know if Joe Cox wouldn't get the opportunity to continue to push forward and be a part of this offense when he has been a big deal, a massive deal for how this is utilized. Guys, your offensive staff, Lane Kiffin alone, just alone, Lane Kiffin is a massive deal. But all of the guys that he brought along with him, I think is also a massive deal too. It also tells me that the offensive line coach clearly at Ole Miss is going to stay. But they have dominated as a staff offensively. Guys, I highly suggest that a lot of you don't go watch the highlights. Go watch the game of them versus Georgia. They are not more talented than Georgia. They're not. Ole Miss is not more talented than Georgia. But what did they do? What did they do? With a less talented roster, Ole Miss went into Georgia and scored 35 straight points. They ran the ball 4 times in the red zone and scored touchdowns. This offensive staff makes me very excited about where you're going to go. I think the one thing that excites me the most is that you also have a situation where these guys aren't having to completely figure it out. Not all the time. What, Brandon? All right. Clean it up. Guys, stand by. Stand by. We better now? Yeah, we're better. Okay. I love your offensive staff. To get back to the point here, I love your offensive staff. I think it's I got to be real with you. I think it's the best offensive staff in the SEC. I think that you have the best offensive staff in the SEC. You can't argue it when you're constantly top 5 in the country. You can't argue it. We're going to have to we're going to have to watch what Eric Walford does. He's got a massive I mean, he's just got a lot that he's going to have to rebuild here. We'll see. We shall see. He also is recruited at a much higher level, and a lot of his guys have hit. Look at Bama's look at Bama's offensive line right now and the guys that he recruited that also got drafted last year. So we'll see. There's another position on offense that we need to discuss. Running backs. I know, well, I'm not going to say it like that. The biggest question that I have gotten, the most consistent question that I've gotten over the last 7 days, let's be conservative here, mainly 8 days, is Frank Wilson going to stay a part of the offensive staff for LSU? Before I talk about that and maybe some things that I've heard, let's just talk about opinion. Let's connect some dots here. So you pretty much have your entire offensive staff locked down. You pretty much have your entire defensive staff locked down. And you've been here a week, and the interim head coach that's over your team right now has not been announced as the running backs coach. If I didn't talk to anybody, my perception right now is that Frank Wilson's not going to be retained. That's opinion. I think that there have been conversations with Lane Kiffin and Frank Wilson in reference to him being retained. But I don't think it's an on-field position role. Guys, the truth of the matter is, and I will continue to say this, your offensive staff as a whole failed. I hope that all of you hear this, and I hope all of you connect the dots. I do not know if Frank Wilson's going to be retained. I think that he completely mismanaged the running back room. I think that what he does and how he rotates, I don't like when Harlan Berry has a 13-yard run and he gets taken out. I don't like that. But I wonder if you were going to make that move and get a quote-unquote PR win, why haven't you made that move now? I just don't think Frank Wilson's going to be retained. Not on the field. I know that worries a lot of you in recruiting, but guys, if you go out there next year and win, and you do it at a high level, and coaches around Louisiana see purpose, they don't give a shit where you're from. They don't care where you're from. If you have an electric offensive side of the football, which we're all anticipating that you're going to have under Lane Kiffin, no one's going to give two Rudy Poos where any coach is from. You had a quarterbacks coach that's been here for a decade. He failed. You have an offensive line coach who's from here, and he failed. You have a running backs coach and a wide receivers coach that are from here, and they failed. They failed miserably because this is the worst offensive unit that we've ever seen. It's got fundamental problems in it. I just don't, if I'm just looking from the outside in, which is clearly what I'm doing, I don't think he's being retained. I've heard some chatter in reference to potentially an off-field role, but I doubt that Frank takes that. It's just chatter at this point. I don't know. I think that there are players along the offensive side of the football that are ready for change to happen. You know, in some of the conversations that I've had over the last week, when talking to people inside of LSU football ops, I think the biggest thing that they are most excited about is that there's going to be change offensively. I'm not trying to be rude to those guys, but it's just the truth. Let's see what happens here at running back. The only thing that I can think is that Lane Kiffin is holding on for Kevin Smith. We've talked about his son being at the press conference with Lane Kiffin being at LSU. And if you just have kids, like, would you let your son be there and spend the night literally in another state with a family if you did not 1,000% trust them? Again, putting context clues together, I think Frank did the best job that he probably could. But guys, he was just as much a part of this thing with Brian Kelly as anybody. He led recruiting, and it didn't work. So we'll see. Blake Baker, let's move to the defensive side of the football. Blake Baker, as we've talked about, it's already going to be retained as the defensive coordinator. I listened this morning to, I always say T-Bob and Hester, to Flynn and Hester in his interview there. I was going to talk about it, but we don't have enough time. I highly suggest y'all go listen to it. Jacob does and Flynn do an amazing job. They're really good at what they do, clearly. I mean, listen, the only thing that I would say about Blake Baker in reference to it, we've already talked about it. It's a massive deal. There was one thing he said in there that I don't want to say I don't agree with, but I thought that he played very smart in. He was asked by Hester in reference to what he's going to do in the portal. He's like, oh, man, I'm not really sure. He knows. He knows exactly where he's going to attack. They need some interior defensive linemen. You can't run true freshmen out there and sustain it. I think they need some linebacker help, and they probably need a safety. They probably could use an elite edge rusher if you got it, and you go from there. You're going to have to find some edge pressure. But he said that him and Lane have been sitting down. You know, I listened to the interview with something that was interesting. He said happy wife, happy life twice, which I thought was really funny. So maybe Mrs. Baker, Mrs. Baker, we need to thank for him staying here. Thank you, Mrs. Baker. Not only are you a legend at LSU on the field at soccer, you're also a legend of keeping your husband here as the defensive coordinator. But, you know, I thought it was interesting that Blake Baker today in that interview talked about the meetings that he's been having with Lane Kiffin. I think Lane has done an exceptional job the last 8 days. The number one thing was keeping Blake Baker. And listen, we talked about this 2 weeks ago, or we talked about this 8 days ago. There was nobody that held Lane Kiffin back-to-back times to lower total points than Blake Baker. And Lane knows that. But he also just talked about, like, not wanting to leave these guys that they're bringing in from a high school rank. Because, guys, what you're probably about to do defensively, the way that you recruited, Blake's going to have his litter of choices of where he wants to go. He said that I want to be on the Kirby Smart plan. Basically, you're on the Glenn Schumann plan too. And I think it's a good path. Keeping him is a big deal. When we talked on Saturday, we did not know how things were going to completely pan out, but we gave you a preface or a preview of what was going to happen. I think the second biggest thing defensively for you was keeping Corey Raymond. Look, we're always going to be partial to Louisiana dudes. And I wish the offensive staff and the Louisiana guys there would have worked out. It just didn't. They did not do well at all. Corey has done a great job at corner. Jake Olson, for what it's worth, too, has done a really good job at safety. He had the task of telling Sage Ryan and Major Burns to be good in the SEC, and they just weren't. Corey has done a very good job. And listen, it doesn't bother me that I come out here. Guys, there's literally right now 5,900 of you listen to us live, which, first off, that's amazing. 5,900 of you listen to us live is fantastic. To all 5,900 of you, guys, I had my reservations about bringing Corey back, and I was wrong. The way that it ended, the things that I know for a fact happened behind the scenes with the Brian Kelly stuff, it rubbed me the wrong way. I didn't think he did a good job at Florida, but my God, he came back and dominated. I think the best unit that you have on this team that now you keep intact is DJ Pickett, who was the freshman of the year per Charles Powers on defense. You bring back PJ Woodland. You're bringing in Haven Finney, and I'm assuming you might go in the portal for another corner, maybe a nickel. And guys, you have two of the young, talented DBs. You might have the best corner room in the country. Corey's done an elite job. So getting Blake Baker to stay also retains Corey Raymond, which I think is just as massive of a win for how good that unit played. You have the best corner in the country. The best corner in the country this year was Mansour Delane. Guys, next year, very easily, the second best corner, the best corner in the country could be DJ Pickett. And you're bringing in Haven Finney, which the recruiting philosophy for Corey right now seems to be a very simple one. We're gonna go after one elite corner that I think is elite, and that's how we're gonna do it. But Corey didn't show his coaching ability with DJ Pickett. He didn't. The best overall development and growth this year, and I can make the argument maybe by anybody, was PJ Woodland. You know, PJ Woodland was a hot topic during practice reports of how good he had played. And did PJ give up some catches? Yeah. But my God, he was all over the receiver every time, and he was always there. He wasn't getting beat by much, if getting beat at all. And he made some massive plays this year. The most consistent room that you have right now is at corner. It's at corner. So keeping Blake Baker and keeping Corey Raymond is a big deal. You're also retaining Jake Olson at safeties. I'm really intrigued, along with Kevin Peoples. Those are Blake's guys, and they've done a really good job here. Kevin Peoples revamped your team in 2 years at defending the run, and you were really elite at being physical. Jake Olson, it goes amongst itself. The growth of Deshaun Spears and what A.J. Halsey and Tamarcus Cooley did for you, I thought was also exceptional. I don't know what Chris Kiffin does. Maybe he's a quote-unquote analyst or he's going to be moved to special teams. I don't know what happens with Lane Kiffin's brother and Chris Kiffin. We'll see what happens ultimately there. Let's get to Elijah Robinson. So it was reported on Saturday by a plethora of people, Matt Zenitz, Pete Thamel, Football Scoop. A lot of people reported this Elijah Robinson news at defensive line. Elijah Robinson has not signed a contract yet with LSU to be your next defensive line coach. I think you need to go all in. Now, Nebraska and Penn State are closing in here. The reason I had the take that I had on Saturday, that I felt good about where you sit, and even when some reports started coming out during the show, I was like, yeah, I still feel good, was because I had heard that Nebraska was coming hard after him. I don't fear Nebraska, nor do I think that he'll go there. I think it's a death trap if he goes there. The only other team that it seems like at the current moment, as we sit here talking, is Penn State. Let's see what happens there. Do you not want to move far from Syracuse to go to Pennsylvania with your family? I don't know. I think that Elijah Robinson is going to listen to everybody, but you just look at the defensive line room that you just recruited. Look at Deuce Geralds, Lamar Brown, and Richard Anderson. I think it's a non-starter for him. I'll continue to say what I say on Saturday. Guys, I do think he's going to be your defensive line coach. I could be wrong there. I could be wrong. But just some things that I'm hearing, I feel very confident that he'll be. So, your defensive line coach. So, with that being said, are there a couple of positions like special teams and running back that you do not have filled? But as we break all of that down, you're retaining a top 25 defensive staff from this past season, who, guys, by the way, is better than the numbers will pull out. You had a better defense than what statistically on paper that you were. Your offense was so bad that your defense had to overcompensate for so many things. Yes, the A&M game. Yes, the Vanderbilt game. But, guys, you couldn't score if I gave you all the notes to go to the bar to land a 10. Offensively, you were like the guy that had billions of dollars and still had all the money and couldn't get a honey at a bar. That's how awful you were. You couldn't score. I think you were better than every number statistically that you put out. And I think that you've shown that you're one of the best defensive staffs collectively in the country because of how bad you were on offense. Because you were so bad and you had to overcompensate over and over and over and over again. Because you had 5 interceptions versus Florida and you scored 13 offensive points. That's how bad you were. Against Vanderbilt, I know Blake Baker came out there today and said, look, man, against Vandy, we didn't have a good game. That's true. You didn't have a great game, but you gave your offense enough opportunities to win that game for you, and they pissed down their leg because they don't know how to do anything else other than piss down their legs. It's the worst offense I've ever seen at LSU. Your defense literally gave you everything that they had. And the couple of times that they needed their offense to bail them out, they couldn't do it. The 2 games that they needed their offense to do it, they just couldn't do it. A&M was A&M. But after Brian Kelly got fired, you went into Alabama and you took it to him. You went into Oklahoma and you took it to him. 2 playoff teams that ironically face off against one another. I think it's one of the best defensive staffs. So when I look at this as the whole, with what Lane Kiffin has already shown in the SEC offensively and what you do, coming along with and retaining the defensive staff that was already at LSU and potentially adding Elijah Robinson into the mix. So you have a top 25 unit defensively that should have been better and need some reinforcements. And we all know defensively, you need some reinforcements. With a guy who's known for being the best overall play caller in the country and one of the best developers of quarterbacks in the entire country, if not of all of football. You're adding 2 of the best sides of the football together. Yeah, you have one of the best staffs in all of the SEC and all of the country. Do you need to rebuild a little bit here? Do you need to have some situations where you got to rebuild from a player side of things? Without a doubt, and I will be the first one to admit it. But what happens if you kill it in the portal? What happens if you actually kill it in the portal? Because I think LSU right now has a good core nucleus of players. Like Trey'Daz Green, Carius Kern, Harlem Berry. We haven't seen them, but you haven't seen them, but I've seen Manchild, Teron Francis, Phillip Wright, some of the guys that you'll bring in offensively, because I think you have a chance here. You need a rebuild, but I think you have one of the best staffs in the entire SEC, if not the country. All right. Before we get to a quick break, so just a portal update. So now we're having to do portal updates every day. 4 players have entered the portal as of right now, or plan and intend to enter the portal right now for LSU as Ashton Stamps, Ahmad Bro, Wallace Foster, and Jelani Watkins have all entered the portal. Guys, I don't mean to be rude, but you have 4 players that are in the portal. All of them are, besides maybe Jelani Watkins, They're insignificant. They're insignificant. I do expect a couple of more. I don't know what Jordan Gilbert's going to do. I intend him to enter the portal. Maybe be a grad transfer. I do think you're going to have a lot of core nucleus that stays. I do. Look, I'm not saying that these guys got processed. Ashton Sampson's already out the door. Jordan Gilbert's probably more than likely already out the door. Ahmad Bro was a key contributor. I said key contributor. He was a contributor for you. Just too undersized to play in the SEC. Gave you everything he had every single down. And it could have been utilized here. I just think these guys in the portal is going to be insignificant. The only other thing that I would say in reference to this, I think you're just going to bring in a lot of really good talent. I think you're going to land Elijah Robinson. I think you're going to bring in some interior defensive linemen. So the Ahmad Bro thing, I think it's insignificant for what it's worth. All right. Let me get to a quick break. We come back and we read Super Chat. Stay with us. Guys, let me tell you about our good friends over at Grand Slam Heating and Air, where your comfort is their top priority. At Grand Slam Heating and Air, they promise to provide customers with high-quality HVAC service at an affordable price while ensuring the homeowner peace of mind. From their office to your home, they guarantee the best hassle-free experience around. Efficiency and comfort is their game. Let them make your home Grand Slam today. At Grand Slam Heating and Air, they're offering their annual maintenance plan starting off at $18.75 a month, and also doing those $99 tune-up promotion. They provide free estimates for system and ductwork replacement, as well as offering financing to get the job done with no money up front. From Baton Rouge to Hammond to Covington, they're all around. So what you need to do today, give them a call at 225-380-9065. That's 225-380-9065. Or go over to the website, getgrandslamair.com. That's getgrandslamair.com, where your comfort is their top priority. Guys, I want to talk to you about our good friends over the Drake Williams Law Firm and Drake Title Company. Are you facing tough times due to an injury from a car accident, navigating the complexities of divorce, or purchasing a new home? At the Drake Williams Law Firm and Drake Title Company, they understand the challenges you're going through, and they are here to help. The lawyer team of Ernie Drake III, Ryan J. Williams, and Summer Vignair, along with Morgan Daniels, have the experience and proven track record to give you that peace of mind. Give them a call today at 985-386-7600. That's 985-386-7600 to schedule a free consultation at their brand new office located in historic downtown Ponchatoula. They're also doing a special, the AYS special. If you're refinancing or closing on a home in Southeast Louisiana, request the Drake Title Company to handle your closing. If you mention Blake Ruffino and AYS, you're going to receive a $400 discount on title fees. Again, give them a call at 985-386-7600. Let them know that Blake Ruffino sent you on by. All right. Jay Deck, along with Rusty, became members on the YouTube channel. Thank you so much. We'll have some content out for you tomorrow. Rusty, that's a nice buck you have in your profile picture. Keita, thank you again for the massive $100 super chat. DM me. We'll talk about it, but you're now on the first of my list. Shaquan with a $5 super chat says, I like everything about 9 SEC games, playing different opponents, all that good stuff, until it's playoffs and they potentially leave SEC teams out. So this has been my whole argument with Carter Bryant. I keep hearing everybody tell me that they want better games, okay? Like they want more competitive games in the SEC. All right. 11 of the SEC teams are in the top 15 in strength of schedule. Like I could screw it. Like let's just pull it up. I mean, screw it. It doesn't matter. Strength of schedule, college football 2025. So this is your strength of schedule metrics. Okay, let's go to 1. All right, so you have Florida that's at number 2. You have Arkansas that is number 3. You have Alabama that's at number 4. Texas that is, let me redo that. Florida's at 2. Arkansas is at 5. Alabama's at 6. The Longhorns are at 7. South Carolina is at 8. Kentucky's at 9. LSU's at 10. Auburn is 11. Oklahoma is at 12. Mississippi State is at 13. And Texas A&M is at 15. So 11 teams in the SEC are in the top 15. Georgia's right outside of it at 18. Vanderbilt is at 25. Guys, that's 13 of the 16 members. Tennessee is at 33. Now, let me stop right there. Tennessee's not in the top 30 when it comes to strength of schedule, and he will complain about that. But let me stop you right there. Tennessee's 4 losses come to Vanderbilt, they come to Alabama, they come to Georgia, and they come to Oklahoma. You tell me if you wouldn't want Indiana's schedule or Ohio State's schedule for that matter. They don't get dinged. We have non-conference games. You bitch. Bro, do what? I don't want to hear that. I just don't want to hear that. Do you see what I'm saying? So when we had this argument with Carter or whomsoever, stop with the BS. It blows my mind. Guys, Ohio State played one playoff team this year, and it took them to get to a conference championship game to do it. When I look at Tennessee, when I look at LSU, like a lot of people say shit about A&M. A&M didn't really play anybody. Well, look at their strength of schedule. I mean, it blows my mind that people have that thought process. Dane Bergeron sends a $10 super chat, says, I love that Lane did not go to game day. Me too, even though I did a 30-minute segment on it. He should stay away from game day and SEC Network. There is no need for him to go to help out their ratings and being on those shows. I agree, Dane. And listen, I love that Saban said what he said. This is my whole biggest argument of what I said the other day. Keep that same energy. Keep that same energy. I wish you would have stayed at Ole Miss. Brother, like I keep hearing McAfee say that. You left a team of people behind to sign a new deal with ESPN. You hypocrite. Don't be hypocritical, dude. Josh, sends a $2 super chat. Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it. Stephen Young with a $5 super chat says Trey'Dez Green is the biggest benefactor of Kiffin's offense. I agree with that. That guy is going to be a stud moving forward. Completely agree. Completely agree. Couldn't agree with you more. Tiger Roar Sports, along with Laura and Speckman, has given 70 memberships. Speckman's the GOAT. Speckman, send me your address. Speckman's the GOAT. 70 of you are going to get gifted AYS memberships on YouTube. What a dog Speckman is. I need to put, instead of a picture of Joe Burrow back here, I need to put a picture of Speckman because he is just delivering for AYS tonight. My man, you're on a roll. Thank you, buddy. Greatly appreciate it. Rolo with a $10 super chat says, so with the scarcity of guys usually hitting the portal on the O-line, what do you think our chances of our O-line being more prosperous next year on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being elite? 6. About a 6. To get better? Because, look, here's where I think that you are along your offensive line. Number one, I think Tyree Adams didn't have a bad year. I think he needs to get better. I think you got Carius Kern that gets moved to guard. What can Solomon Thomas be if he doesn't enter the portal? You bring back Braylon Moore, and what in the good wide world do you do with Weston Davis? And here's another thing. I thought Ori Williams played well. I think you got some pieces. It's going to be about the developmental side of this. can you put it all together? And quite honestly, offensively, you just from a play calling perspective sucked. I don't think it's impossible for you to get better. Stephen Young says Weiss is not saying it Ole Miss. I agree with you. I don't think he is. I don't know why they keep saying that. Who knows? Who knows? I mean, they also said that Lane was staying at Ole Miss. He also says Frank Wilson just can't be the running backs coach. Ole Miss RBs have produced so much more than LSU RBs. Frank didn't manage our running backs well. It's obvious. Yeah, and I just be honest with you, man. It just looks like that they're not going to retain him. And I think Frank has kind of lost touch a little. And listen, every time I say something like that, I get killed. I just think that he's probably been offered an off-field role spot, and he's probably going to say no to it. But if Lane wants to bring his own running backs coach in here, I think you got to do it. You got to do it. Stephen Young says you don't sacrifice running back production for recruiting. It's an easy decision, without a doubt. And you need a running game. And listen, you didn't manage. Guys, JT Lindsey getting arrested, like he's still a freshman. He wouldn't have been ready either. He was not going to be taking significant snaps for you. I expect Caleb Jackson to enter the portal. It is what it is there. It is what it is. I don't know what else to say. But it's just, I don't know. But, we'll see. Tiger Roar with a $5 super chat says percentage that Lane will hire O, or is that ship sailed? If you hire Elijah Robinson, it's a 0% chance. I think that Lane has been asked, like, hey, man, we're not trying to tell you what to do. Can we just have a conversation about Orgeron? Like, man, how that ended was not great here. And it was very toxic. Like, it didn't go over great. I don't know. I think that ship has sailed, to be blunt with you. Maybe if you don't land E-Rob, maybe he does circle back for what it's worth. Dave, not Mike, with a $5 super chat says, watching AYS on Twitter today was cinema. LL, thank you for all the hard work from the 864 South Carolina. Yeah, I led the show off with that, man. I don't understand their logic. Like the high top sports guys, the Ole Miss media, Lane Kiffin's never led a team to the playoffs. Bitch, you're 11-1. You're 11-1. Like he literally led you to the playoffs. Literally. Like, stop with this cute little semantics games that you're trying to, he's never coached a playoff game. Dog, he won a national title. He's won 4 national titles as a play caller. Yeah, he's coached playoff games before. Pete Golden's never coached a game as a head coach in his life. Like, it's so dumb. Grievous with a $2 super chat says, any interesting portal rumors, Sellers, Coleman? Yeah, those are rumors. We'll see. Like, I think Damon Williams, the quarterback out of Washington, that one's been really loud, especially just publicly. I think Damon Williams would be the person I'd go after. But yeah, there's a lot, Coleman included. So we'll see how crazy this portal window is going to be. I think it's going to be crazy. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think it's going to be a crazy one. TJ with a $5 super chat says, hey, man. Has anyone around LSU heard of Weiss entertaining a full return to Ole Miss? Saw Ole Miss reporter acting like it's being talked about. Pay us the buyout. If he wants to stay, let him stay. They also said Lane was staying at Ole Miss. Like, their lead reporter was reporting Lane staying at Ole Miss. It's a 50-50 race. And you have a November 21st MOU that allegedly was signed. So, no. I don't think he is. And Lane said on social media that he expects him to come. Charlie Weiss would be an idiot. He'd be an idiot to stay there. Stephen Young with a $5 super chat says, Blake, how big of a deal is O-line improvement when Kiffin's offense gets the ball out so fast? It's still a massive thing because it's not about getting the ball out so fast. They run the ball so much. I mean, you're going to have to develop at a high level offensively because you're going to need to be more physical. Nick Savage being the strength and conditioning coach, I hope that they landed there. I just hope that he's a lot better. They run the ball a lot. Everything that Lane does is based off of the RPO play action game in reference to them running the football. His running back leads the country in touchdowns. You know, and I mean, they run. The biggest lie is that they are just not a physical football team. They're a very physical football team with tempo. Development's a massive deal. It's a massive deal for your run game. All right. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Y'all have a blessed night. Peace.